This thrilling story begins with a powerful princess named Ravenna. She had a younger sister named Freya. Both of them were incredibly strong and had a massive army. Together, they started conquering the neighboring kingdoms and territories. After some time, they became so powerful that no other kingdom could stand against Ravenna's empire. Ravenna became the ruler of this new kingdom, and Freya was next in line. Through all her experiences, Ravenna realized that power was everything. Whoever had power would rule. However, she soon discovered that her younger sister, Freya, had fallen in love with a man. Ravenna didn't want Freya to get involved in such things, as she believed it would only lead to her downfall. She tried to convince her younger sister that she was going down the wrong path and that it would destroy her, but Freya didn't listen. She grew very close to the man and began dreaming of a new life with him. Some time later, Freya gave birth to a daughter, which brought her immense happiness. One day, Freya received a letter from the man, stating that he wanted to start a new life with her. He proposed that they leave the kingdom behind and go far away. This was exactly what Freya wanted, so she decided to meet him at the location he had mentioned. However, in her excitement, Freya forgot that she had left her baby alone in the palace. Suddenly, loud screams echoed through the halls. Panicked, Freya rushed to her daughter's room, but it was too late. There, she saw a group of enemies, along with the very man she had loved. She was informed that it was her own lover who had taken their daughter's life. Freya was completely shattered and didn't know what to do. Unlike Ravenna, who had always possessed magical powers, Freya had never unlocked her own abilities, until now. Overcome with uncontrollable rage, Freya unleashed her internal powers, summoning ice and attacking her lover, ultimately killing him. With her child gone and her trust in love destroyed, Freya made a decision: she would no longer stay with her sister, Ravenna. Instead, she would leave and build her own kingdom. Gradually, Freya began constructing her own empire, a place where she took in all the orphan children who had lost their parents. Freya believed that since she couldn't save her own child, she would dedicate her life to protecting other children. She gathered orphaned and abandoned children, keeping them safe while training them in combat skills. Over time, these children began to deeply respect Freya, and gradually, her kingdom expanded. People started calling her the Ice Queen. The children she trained were known as Huntsmen. They were not only highly skilled fighters but also carried a fearless arrogance, something that Freya had instilled in them from the beginning. Years passed, and Freya became the official ruler of her new kingdom. Among her most skilled soldiers was a warrior named Eric. He was the best among them, and everyone in the kingdom obeyed and followed Freya without question. Eric, along with his army, began attacking neighboring lands and annexing them into Freya's kingdom. She, too, was now expanding her territory. However, it was soon revealed that Eric had fallen in love with a girl named Sarah. The two grew very close, but this was a major problem. Freya's kingdom had one strict rule: no one was allowed to fall in love. Freya had completely lost faith in love, and anyone who broke this rule would be punished. Despite this, Eric and Sarah continued their relationship in secret, enjoying their time together. After some time, they decided to leave the kingdom and live a peaceful life far away. But as they were trying to escape, a group of soldiers suddenly surrounded them. Freya had found out about their love. Freya confronted them, declaring, "No one has the right to love in this kingdom. If you want to live your life outside of my rule, prove that you can survive." With that, she ordered her own soldiers to attack Eric and Sarah. The soldiers immediately launched an assault on them. Eric and Sarah fought exceptionally well together, taking down every soldier who came their way. They were among the strongest warriors in the kingdom. However, Freya knew she had to act quickly, otherwise, too many of her soldiers would be killed. Using her internal ice powers, Freya created a massive wall between Eric and Sarah, separating them. The soldiers then attacked Sarah alone, leaving her severely wounded. In the end, they brutally killed her. Meanwhile, Freya and her soldiers overpowered Eric, injuring him and throwing him into the river. It seemed as if Eric and Sarah's love story had ended right there. The story then shifts to several years later. Deep inside a forest, a group of soldiers is seen carrying a magical mirror, which they had stolen from a kingdom. However, the kingdom's forces were chasing them, determined to reclaim it. Amidst this chaos, Eric reappears. He is now heading toward his master. Soon, a man named Duke enters the scene. He, along with his soldiers, is also searching for the magical mirror. Duke was a prince of a powerful kingdom, and Eric had started working for him. Eric was extremely loyal to Duke and followed his every command. After Eric's arrival, Duke explained everything: how the magical mirror had been stolen and why it was so important. Duke's wife had suffered greatly because of it, which is why they had originally decided to move the mirror to a safer place. Unfortunately, before they could do so, some thieves managed to steal it. Duke then warned Eric that Freya might also be after the magical mirror. If she ever found out about it, she would stop at nothing to obtain it. Eric, however, was still unaware of what exactly made the magical mirror so powerful. Duke then explained to Eric that this magical mirror had a unique power. Whoever looked into it would learn everything about themselves, including what they were destined to do in the future. In a way, it could reveal one's fate. Moreover, it was said that whoever used this mirror would become immortal. Hearing this, Eric immediately turned around and shot down a pigeon. It was revealed that the pigeon was actually one of Freya's spies. This meant that Freya might have already learned about the magical mirror and Eric's survival. Realizing the urgency of the situation, Eric and Duke decided to split up with their respective forces to track down the magical mirror before it fell into the wrong hands. Eric was accompanied only by 2 sisters who would support him throughout his journey. Meanwhile, Freya was shown learning about the magical mirror and, more importantly, discovering that Eric was still alive. Furious, she sent a large group of huntsmen to retrieve the mirror and eliminate Eric once and for all. As Eric and his companions advanced deeper into the forest, they stumbled upon the corpses of many fallen soldiers. Eric, who possessed the unique ability to communicate with nature, knelt down and touched the earth, asking it what had happened there. He then examined the bodies of the slain soldiers. Through his powers, Eric learned that the soldiers had turned on each other, fighting among themselves until they all perished. However, he noticed something unusual. One of the bodies had been struck by an arrow made of gold and silver. Eric couldn't determine which group had launched the attack. As night fell, Eric and the 2 sisters decided to rest and grab some food at a nearby tavern. They were enjoying their time when suddenly, a group of huntsmen arrived. It was Freya's men, sent to kill Eric. Caught off guard by the sudden attack, Eric struggled to defend himself and was severely beaten. Just when it seemed like he wouldn't make it, a mysterious stranger appeared. This unknown figure skillfully took down Freya's men, forcing them to flee. However, Eric was already gravely injured and collapsed into unconsciousness. A little while later, Eric opened his eyes, and what he saw left him completely shocked. The person who had saved him was none other than Sarah. Eric was utterly confused because, years ago, he had witnessed Sarah's death with his own eyes. How was she alive? Sarah, however, was furious and immediately attacked Eric, believing that he had betrayed her and abandoned her years ago. As she lashed out at him, Eric finally began to understand the truth. He explained to Sarah that the ice wall Freya had created between them had not just physically separated them, it had also manipulated their minds. Freya had shown Eric an illusion of Sarah's death, making him believe she was gone forever. At the same time, Freya had shown Sarah a vision of Eric fleeing and abandoning her. As a result, Sarah had been trapped in Freya's kingdom all these years, consumed by the pain of betrayal. After some time and deep thought, Sarah realized that Eric was telling the truth. When morning came, she told Eric that she would stand by his side once again. Sarah also understood the grave danger that lay ahead. If the magical mirror fell into Freya's hands, it would spell disaster for the entire world. With its power, defeating Freya would become impossible. Determined to prevent this, Sarah joined Eric and the 2 sisters on their quest to secure the mirror before Freya could claim it. As they ventured deeper into the forest, they suddenly triggered a trap. Before they could react, they were lifted into the air, hanging upside down. Moments later, they discovered that their captors were a group of female dwarves, who stood below them, laughing at their predicament. Eric, thinking quickly, offered the golden and diamond-tipped arrow as a bargaining chip. He proposed a deal. If the dwarves freed them, he would give them the arrow. In return, they had to reveal the identity of whoever had used this arrow. The female dwarves found the offer intriguing and agreed. After releasing them, the dwarves revealed that the arrow belonged to the goblins. This revelation was shocking. Many believed the goblins had gone extinct, yet here was proof that they still existed. The goblins had an infamous obsession with shiny objects, hoarding them deep within their hidden forest stronghold. It was a treacherous place, from which no one had ever returned alive. Realizing that the goblins had likely stolen the magical mirror, Eric and Sarah decided to head toward the goblin forest. The female dwarves agreed to guide them to the goblin stronghold, but in return, they made one condition: Eric and his companions would be responsible for their safety. Everyone liked this plan, so they agreed to go there. Traveling by boat, they reached the forest. As soon as they entered the goblin forest, they saw many valuable things because there were several diamonds and gold items stored there. They also noticed many human skeletons, which indicated how dangerous the place could be. Moving further inside, they spotted a magical mirror in the middle of the area. However, all the goblins present there were already dead. Eric and Sarah realized that this was the effect of the magical mirror, which was manipulating them and forcing them to kill each other. As they moved closer to the magical mirror, a terrifying goblin appeared in front of them. This goblin looked extremely scary and had sensed that Sarah had stolen a ring from there. The black goblin became furious upon realizing this and immediately attacked them. First, he struck Sarah and threw her far away. Now, the goblin turned toward the dwarf people to attack them. But it was Isaac's responsibility to protect everyone, so he quickly moved them aside and said, "Take the magical mirror and get out of here." Isaac and Sarah teamed up and started fighting the black goblin together. Their combined attacks weakened the goblin, and for a moment, it seemed like he was about to lose. But suddenly, the goblin let out a loud roar, summoning several of his allies to the spot. Now, they were completely surrounded by goblins from all sides. The dwarf people had managed to grab the magical mirror, but where would they escape from the goblins? Eric and Sarah were terrified at that moment, wondering how they would face so many goblins. Eric did not want to put Sarah in danger, so he told her to get away. He took his weapons and started fighting all the goblins alone. However, Sarah knew that Eric wouldn't be able to hold his ground against so many goblins. Then she realized that these goblins had highly flammable blood. Without wasting any time, she took a burning arrow and fired it toward the goblins. All the goblins started burning terribly. Meanwhile, the others thought that Eric had been killed, but he managed to escape and returned safely. As night fell, they decided to stay there. Eric once again tried to explain to Sarah that everything might have been orchestrated by Freya to manipulate them. But Sarah still didn't trust Eric. However, when she saw the locket around his neck, the same one she had given him 7 years ago, she finally understood that Eric was telling the truth. After so many years, Sarah and Eric grew close once again, showing affection for each other. They had finally regained trust in one another. Their night passed beautifully, but the next morning, as Eric was sitting alone, he felt the magical mirror pulling him toward it. Eric couldn't resist and walked straight to the mirror. As he looked inside, he saw a vision of Sarah betraying him. Just then, Sarah arrived and pulled Eric out of the illusion. But now, Eric demanded to know what she was hiding from him. Sarah refused to say anything, making it seem like she was indeed keeping a secret. In the next moment, the entire place began to freeze, as if an apocalypse was approaching. Suddenly, Freya and her massive army entered the scene, surrounding Eric from all sides. The shocking truth was revealed: Sarah had approached Eric on Freya's orders, helping her find the magical mirror. Now that her goal was accomplished, Freya had possession of the mirror. Eric couldn't understand why Sarah had betrayed him. Freya ordered Sarah to kill Eric. Without hesitation, Sarah pulled out an arrow and shot Eric. He collapsed right there, and Freya's army departed. The dwarves believed Eric was dead. But he wasn't. Sarah had deliberately aimed at his locket, ensuring he remained unharmed. When Eric regained consciousness, he realized something important: Sarah's aim never missed. If she had shot the locket, it meant she truly wanted to save him. Now, Eric had a decision to make: how to rescue Sarah from Freya's control and protect his people. Meanwhile, Freya was shown returning to her kingdom with her entire Ice Age army. At this point, Freya felt more powerful than ever because she had the magical mirror. She placed the mirror in front of her and asked, "Who is the most beautiful of them all?" As soon as she said this, something started emerging from the mirror. It took the form of a strange human, who was none other than her sister, Ravenna. Freya was utterly shocked to see her sister because she had believed that Ravenna was dead. But Ravenna explained that when she possessed the magical mirror, her soul had become trapped inside it. The only way she could be freed was if someone asked the mirror that exact question: who is the most beautiful? Now, because of Freya, Ravenna was finally free. However, Ravenna had a highly aggressive nature. She immediately tried to take control of the kingdom that Freya had built, reshaping it according to her own rules. Upon learning that Freya had a competitor, Snow White, Ravenna insisted that they must attack her and seize her kingdom. Freya, on the other hand, wanted to handle the situation more carefully. But Ravenna began acting as though the kingdom was hers, enforcing her own rules and commanding all the soldiers. Freya did not like this at all, but since Ravenna was her sister, she struggled to speak against her. Meanwhile, 2 clever dwarves had been sneaking into the kingdom. Using their intelligence, they managed to evade the guards and infiltrate the castle. At the same time, Eric was seen making a daring leap onto the palace walls. His life was at risk in the process, but he managed to land safely. He, along with the dwarves, made his way straight to the royal chamber, where Ravenna was manipulating Freya. Ravenna had already convinced Freya that they must attack Snow White. So, Freya summoned all her huntsmen and began planning the assault. Eric had arrived just in time. He took out his bow and arrow and fired directly at Freya. But before the arrow could strike her, Ravenna caught it. At that moment, seeing Eric, Sarah also turned against Freya and launched her attack. However, as long as Ravenna was present, no one could harm Freya. Eric and Sarah were captured in the worst way possible. Ravenna once again provoked Freya, insisting that anyone who defied them must die. Under immense pressure, Freya ordered their execution. The Huntsmen, who had trained alongside Eric and Sarah since childhood and had become like family, were brought forward to kill them. Eric desperately tried to reason with them. He explained that Freya had only ever used them. She might have raised them as children, but she had been exploiting them all along. Despite his pleas, the Huntsman seemed unwilling to understand. Now, one of the Huntsmen directly picks up a sword, but instead of killing Eric, he breaks his chains. This means that they are all still on Eric and Sarah's side. Everyone had united. Ravenna, who possessed dark powers, unleashed all her internal energy and started killing the Huntsmen one by one. More than half of the Huntsmen died in this way. Seeing this, Freya, who had trained all these Huntsmen for many years, couldn't bear it anymore. Using her powers, she raised a wall of ice. Due to this decision, Ravenna was unable to harm the Huntsmen. The tension between Ravenna and Freya escalated intensely. Freya then started questioning her sister, asking, "What have you ever truly done for me?" That's when Ravenna revealed a shocking truth. She told Freya that she had never received as much power from the beginning because she had always supported the wrong things. Even now, she was siding with those of a lower rank than her. At this moment, Freya was standing near a magical mirror. She began asking the mirror for the truth about Ravenna. Since Ravenna was connected to the mirror in a mystical way, it started revealing everything. Freya saw the truth crystal clear inside the mirror. It showed the moment from years ago when she had loved a man deeply. Then, she discovered a dark reality. Ravenna had known about her love all along. Not only that, but the magical mirror had also revealed to Ravenna that Freya's daughter would grow up to be extremely beautiful, surpassing even Ravenna. A time would come when that very girl would be the cause of Ravenna's downfall. Fearing this prophecy, Ravenna had manipulated Freya's lover at that crucial moment and ensured that her child was killed. Upon discovering this devastating truth, Freya was consumed with rage. She immediately attacked Ravenna using her powers. Meanwhile, Eric, Sarah, and the remaining Huntsmen started climbing the ice wall to save their queen. At the same time, an intense battle erupted between the two sisters. Freya had always been weaker than her elder sister, but over time, she had developed many new skills. However, as the fight continued, Freya became exhausted. At one point, she had no energy left to continue. In a surprising move, she suddenly embraced her sister. But this was part of her plan. Freya intended to use her powers to freeze Ravenna completely. But before Freya could act, Ravenna struck her with a sharp object. Freya, gravely injured, collapsed to the ground. At that moment, Eric, Sarah, and all the remaining Huntsmen had arrived. Ravenna once again used her dark powers and started attacking the Huntsmen. However, Freya knew exactly how to defeat her. With her last bit of strength, she pointed toward Eric and used her ice-forming technique to gradually freeze the magical mirror. Seeing this, Eric immediately understood where he needed to strike. Dodging Ravenna's attacks, he hurled an axe straight at the mirror. As the magical mirror shattered piece by piece, Ravenna, whose soul was connected to it, also began to wither away. Slowly but surely, her entire existence came to an end. With Ravenna's destruction, the battle was over. However, Freya, their princess, was now severely weakened and on the verge of death. As she lay there, she gazed at Eric and Sarah, seeing in them a reflection of herself and the love she had once lost. Eric and Sarah, now free, could finally live their lives together. They set off with the remaining Huntsmen, ready to build a future without the threat of the two dangerous magical sisters. With the fall of both Ravenna and Freya, peace was restored to their kingdom, and they could all live happily ever after. And with that, our story comes to an end.